Welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. This is the first of a two-part series about healing from interpersonal trauma. And this episode includes why it's been so difficult to heal from narcissistic abuse and relationship trauma. We're also going to be looking at the different ways we thought we could be healed, ways that have proven for most people to be ineffectual, as well as quantum healing effectiveness that is now backed by science and which can release us from trauma deeply at our subconscious and cellular level in ways that standard contemporary therapy simply can't. So today you're going to start learning exactly why talk therapy and trying to think differently and even learning copious amounts of information about abuse and your abuse symptoms, although can help you know you're not alone or going mad, does not have the ability to heal you. The specific healing work that I'm going to be talking to you about in this two-part series is cellular. It's quantum. It's where spirituality and science meet as a powerhouse of healing. Today, because I am alive and not just surviving after relationship trauma, but thriving beyond my wildest dreams, where I have zero symptoms and am healthier, happier, more confident and safer in my body and life than I've ever been, even before being abused. It's my life's mission to educate you about how I healed for real and how you can also. So in this series, I'm sharing humble, powerful, and authentic accounts from my own life, as well as those of numerous thrivers within this community regarding what our experiences were and how we healed. I want to inspire you, regardless of how bad your trauma symptoms are, and even if you feel that it's impossible to heal or that it's just too late for you. I promise you this is just not true. The conversation this week and next week is so that you can save your soul and life and become the powerful knock-on effect for your children and their children and for our world. So, before we get started, thank you everyone who subscribed to my channel and for supporting the Thriver mission. And please know I love hearing from all you beautiful thrivers and about your breakthroughs. And if you haven't yet subscribed, I want to remind you to please do. And if you like this video, please make sure that you hit the like button. All right, so let's move on in. And let's look at our disbelief in how hard it is to heal. So let's start off by examining the limited ability we've had to heal from intense trauma. I've met some extremely rare individuals over the years who just seem to be able to get over it and move on after terrible abuse. For me personally, and usually for the hundreds of thousands of people I've met over the last decade plus, this just wasn't possible. Generally, extreme emotional wounding and a decreased ability to function is the norm. These people who I've seen push the pain down or compartmentalize it or just carry on generally have it erupt at a later stage of their life. A very dear friend of mine, after moving on courageously without any healing from narcissistic abuse as a child, had a breakdown years later when in her own loving family when she had a daughter. The other people I know who carry on have generally kept experiencing reoccurring disappointing events in their outer world, such as repeat narcissists or the like, which is evidence of the shadow, the unmet unconscious trauma becoming conscious by meeting them in real life from the outside, as our shadows do. As Buddha said, if you want to know what is going on in your inner world, look at your outer world. Many of us, after overcoming many terrible things in our life and being able to get up and get on with it again, were shocked to discover just how impactful toxic relationship trauma is and how it brought us, maybe for the first time ever, to a place where we couldn't move forward anymore. And this doesn't just have to be intimate partner relationships. It could be with a family member, an authority figure, someone in your workplace, a toxic neighbour, a friend, literally anyone at all. Regardless of what gender or religion or sexual orientation you are, your age, whether or not the person is still in your life or even deceased, or whether the abuse happened today or 40 years ago, the trauma may still remain and be living on like a terrible emotional virus within you. Please know the result of narcissistic abuse is a shocking dis-ease of our entire being that can feel unshakable. When I first set out to get relief from narcissistic abuse, I was dismayed at how no one had a true healing solution for me. Doctors and psychologists told me that my complicated post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, and many other symptoms couldn't be healed, and that medication and strategies were needed to try to manage my symptoms. Additionally, I was horrified by so many people in abuse forums reporting their diminished health, life, and victimhood. And some of these people even spoke like this decades after their abuse. Now, thankfully, having been on the forefront of abuse and trauma recovery for more than a decade, I've met countless people who previously reported the same thing before humbly finding my Thriver way to heal. And this is what Claire, a fellow NARP member and a Thriver, said. Until the NARP healing system, there was literally no help for narcissistic abuse recovery. I went from therapist to spiritual healers, alternative therapy, and the list goes on and on. I tried to help myself learn and understand what had happened to me through research, but no matter how much I learned, I couldn't get well. So many of us who end up in narcissistic abuse recovery, astoundingly, may have already been doing copious amounts of work on ourselves or already be in healing or mental health industries. I was a spiritual therapist and teacher for years prior to narcissistic abuse. And I know many of you are into studying and even being practitioners of well-being, personal development, psychology, counselling, or human care services. Yet we still found ourselves in relationships that brought us to our knees. Why didn't the learning, studying, and therapy change our relationship patterns or take away the pain? The answer is this: because we weren't shown how to heal from painful relationship traumas and programs within our inner beings. There was not the releasing of our trauma cellularly or the reprogramming of the subconscious painful programs to create us as a new healed self. I really want to acknowledge you. Most people who experience the devastation of toxic individuals and any sort of human relationship abuse are extremely traumatized. Not only are you fighting for your mind, sanity, and life, but it's also possible that your finances, security, and what and who you care for are under siege as well. And let's just make this really clear right here, right now. You being in this position is not your fault. And I want you to know that you are not a failure. I know you may be feeling the awful trauma about what you've lost, the time and even years that you've wasted, and the torment you've put yourself and others who you care about through. Maybe you're horrified with how you can't stop going back to the abuse, no matter how terribly you're treated. And you're probably in shock that your life has ended up like this, somewhere you never believed you'd be at the age that you are. Add to this, of course, all the compounding feelings of failing because you don't seem to be getting better. Or maybe just when you think you might be getting better, you find yourself sliding back down into a deep, dark hole again. I can't tell you how often, before I discovered how to heal for real, that was my experience for years. The fact that you're struggling to get healing and resolution with what you're going through is not because you aren't a productive, high-functioning person. Most of the people I meet in this community are far from lazy, unintelligent, or incapable. They're in fact the exact opposite. Like my previous self, you may have, after exhausting your own considerable determination and efforts, diligently consulted people who you hoped could help. I was in psych therapy, lots of it. I was also seeing healers, dietitians, doctors, personality disorder specialists, and specialised lawyers, but nothing was helping me get away, stay away, heal, and move on with my life. So many people told me to let go of him. One narcissistic personality disorder specialist told me the outcome if I stayed was my death or institutionalization. Yet I couldn't stay away. Meanwhile, the guilt and the shame of who and what my life had become was eating me alive. I completely believed I was hopeless, defective, and pathetic. But this wasn't true. I wasn't healing because no one knew the truth about what was really going on inside me, physiologically, and therefore emotionally and mentally. And nobody was addressing my healing where it needed to be addressed, at the core. All therapy was doing was a constant reaffirming of my painful victim story and how hopeless and helpless I felt. And please know, I don't want to knock therapists. I've heard of people gaining support and comfort from them. However, this I believe with all of my heart. The old models of therapy, talking about the problems and receiving medication, need updating. And I believe this because unless we're addressing trauma at the core of where it resides, then we're only hoping to try to manage symptoms. Hence why there's an ongoing need for so much therapy without any real healing results. The effective therapists in our world now are the ones who are working directly with the body-brain connection and are not just attempting to manage symptoms. Goodness, you're noisy today. Can you be quiet, please? Chelsea, a community thriver, shared this. Unfortunately, with the psychiatrists, therapists, and psychologists I saw, all that was accomplished was simply putting a band-aid on a broken bone. It didn't really fix anything. However, when recovery is tackled where the real problems are rooted, the real healing begins. Additional to therapy, in amongst all of my own desperation to try to find an answer to heal, I researched abuse community forums for many hours most nights. And I hoped it would help me deal with him, as well as the terrible symptoms I now had, which included severe anxiety, depression, fibromyalgia, and agoraphobia, as well as CPTSD. And it didn't. The more knowledge I gained, the angrier and more devastated I got, and the more I obsessed about him. And I still couldn't stay away. Tina, another NARP thriver, says this about her experience. I kept finding more information on narcissists and the abuse, but I got tired of reading about the abuse and how bad it all was. I just wanted to get over the powerless feeling I felt. And this is a secret I never had, focusing on healing me. I'm now free from the despair and happy for the first time in a very long time. I know that many of us in this community are spiritual. I am too. I also sought out alternative methods to heal, holistic healers and life coaches. I had treatments including Reiki and crystal healing sessions, and I was regularly doing meditation, affirmations, and journaling. And these things would grant me some temporary relief, but the pain and the mental obsessions about him came back, and I still couldn't keep away. I even determinedly tried law of attraction on me, my life, and at times even him. But there was no way with my deterioration of health that I was able to override my inner trauma, which assaulted me 24 hours a day by trying to just think positive. Now I know that law of attraction was one of the most devastating processes I tried to do. Later, I discovered that trying to mentally push through extreme subconscious survival trauma programs by forcing yourself to be positive can almost break you into psychosis. There is such a need to first face, hold, and release the trauma to make space for a new positive program. As Bruce Lipton says, if you go to battle with your subconscious and conscious minds, your subconscious will win every time. And in fact, as I devastatingly discovered, it will make the painful program and trauma more magnified to assert itself. And of course, this made me feel like even more of a failure. Okay, so if you are or were like me and you've worked your butt off trying numerous ways to heal from trauma, I want you to write below, "This happened to me too, sister." And maybe you'd like to list what you have tried that hasn't helped and also share what has. So now, today, I know the truth. The reason why I wasn't healing wasn't because I was a bad person, unintelligent, or broken beyond repair. It was just that no one had ever taught me about inner trauma and painful beliefs, which were hijacking 95% of my brain and nervous systems and hooking me hard onto someone who represented these unmet and unhealed places within me. This was not my fault. I logically never chose it, and I logically had no control over it. These toxic binds were being driven by forces much more powerful than my conscious self. Willpower was useless in the face of this, as was mere information and strategies. What was needed was a deep cellular shift directly in the core of where these deep, powerful forces were playing out. And when I achieved that, I promise you, none of my powerless, enmeshed, addicted, victimized self remained. And all of my trauma, disease, and symptoms completely left me. I am healed and whole and free of all of them, and I've been that way for a very long time now. So please know, if this has been your struggle too, it doesn't mean that you can't heal and that you're doomed to suffer these terrible traumas, battling your symptoms indefinitely or for life. It just means that you haven't, just like I hadn't at this stage, understood the truth yet. So let's have a look at the real truth about healing. I really want you to know what contemporary medicine and abuse forums are saying to you is not the truth. They're telling you that you are sentenced to struggle with abuse symptoms and a diminished life. With all of my heart, I promise you this is not true. It is totally not true that CPTSD, agoraphobia, adrenal malfunction or fibromyalgia or any of the other horrible symptoms of abuse are unhealable conditions that you will have for life and that you will need constant medication and therapy. What is true is that when you find and release the traumas from your subconscious, which are generating these conditions, they simply melt away. A Thriver member called PP shares this. As a result of my abusive relationship, I acquired fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, osteoporosis, bruxism, insomnia, and sleep deprivation, and then some. The Thriver Healing System is the only one I've found that addresses the inner energetic component and effects of narcissistic abuse. Without this program, I doubt whether a person could ever fully recover and truly make the turnaround from survivor to thriver. This is exactly the healing and approach I've needed for so long. Myself and tens of thousands of people in this community are living proof of this. So now let's look at the science behind why subconscious healing systems work. So neuroscience has discovered a lot, and I love what the scientific community are now proving regarding trauma and the body-brain connection, because it completely backs and supports the Thriver recovery process. Bessel van der Kolk, a Dutch psychiatrist who is a forefront expert on the understanding of trauma, states that the logical part of our brain doesn't have the ability to communicate with our brain's limbic and internal nervous systems where our trauma experiences reside. And therefore, talk therapy is ineffectual to deal with it. It's only through taking our attention within to our visceral emotional experience that we can hope to overcome trauma. The starting point focus of the Thriver Way to Heal is self-partnering. You would hear me talk about it a lot. Every healing takes you into your inner world in theta brainwaves to bypass your logical brain and enter your subconscious visceral feelings and internal programs. Then the healing work is done with processes that communicate directly with your subconscious, your cellular inner self. I want you to imagine this analogy. You're looking at a closed car hood and you're trying to imagine what the mechanical problem is that's going on inside the engine. If you don't go inside, firstly, you will never know what the real issue is. You're only guessing. And secondly, if you don't go inside, you will never fix yourself and the problem will remain. Regarding our trauma, thinking, talking and researching amounts to exactly this. Lots of contention and absolutely no healing. Bruce Lipton is an internationally recognized cellular biologist and best-selling author. He explains that as adults, our life is already programmed by our previous emotional experiences that generated belief systems in relation to these. Bruce says that by the time we're around 35 years of age, our logical mind has only a 5% capacity of changing who we are. Therefore, regardless of how much we learn, research, or talk about our life, we don't break out of the patterns which aren't serving us. Only going inward to reprogram our subconscious, which is in control of 95% of our life, does this. He also explains that our subconscious programs control 40 billion bits per second of information that we process in relation to our life experiences, whereas our logical mind processes a teeny 40 bits per second. And this is why it's impossible to think our way out of our painful emotional experiences, which are generating our feelings, thoughts, and choices, as well as who and what we connect to and stay attached to. So if, for example, we have painful internal trauma that has generated the subconscious belief, people I love hurt me, leave me, replace me, betray me, the list of course may go on, these are the people and experiences we continue to make true in our life with the power of 95% of our being directing this, no matter what we try to think and learn. In part 2 of this series, I will share with you how I was given the codes and the ways through an information download, how to access the subconscious, find these traumas and associated beliefs, load them up and release them. Our logical mind has no ability or way to do this. And you will learn also how we can change our emotional programs directly at our core, often instantly, so that we are no longer the old self operating from the old program. Instead, we are freed onto the trajectory of more empowered, whole, and conscious reactions and decisions that do serve us. JoeDispenza is a scientist and a researcher on the leading edge of neuroscience, epigenetics, and quantum physics. He teaches us that our brain follows our body, meaning our mind thinks in alignment with our inner subconscious programs and does not have access to a healthier path until we create a shift on the inside of ourselves. Therefore, once we change our inner subconscious programs, how we think, which is our level of consciousness, will automatically reflect this. One of the most powerful ways I've found to produce a shift is to enlist a higher power force to fill the space where the released trauma once was. If we were to just release trauma, then in its place we would have an emptiness, a bewilderment about who we are and what is next in our lives. Yet when we fill the space where the trauma was with our superconscious, then we have the best teacher embodied within us. We literally become infinite intelligence, which knows how to be for the greater good, firstly for self, and then as an outflow benefiting all of life in others in divine, powerful, yet graceful and healthy ways. You may think of this as your higher power, whatever your higher power means to you. And to you, this may be God or the universe or creation or even life force. This higher self element is what many contemporary and even some energetic healing processes miss. And it's one that many quantum healers do enlist. Honestly, I don't believe we have any ability to heal the unthinkable, which is what narcissistic abuse truly is, unless we pull on a force this infinite, which does this so powerfully. This higher self aspect to midwife a shift from the old self into your true self to help bring through the breakdown of the old order to the breakthrough of your highest potential new order in record time with maximum potency is a big part of my healing process, and it occurs multiple times in every healing that you do NARP. And this is what Lakira said about this. During the first feeling, it felt like magic, but it's science. I knew that I was touching on something spiritual and a higher power was involved because the feeling of emptiness I had always felt had shifted. I was coming home to myself. I believe 100% in the power of quantum healing, and I hope everybody can be free from emotional trauma by opening up to receive this energy and love. Okay, so I'm going to leave this very important discussion here at this point because I think we've had enough to feel into and talk about for now until part 2. As well as what I mentioned before, next week we're also going to investigate the science of the observer effect, quantum consciousness, the truth about our genes, and our ability to create ourselves and our life anew, even from severe trauma symptoms and even if trauma is all we've ever known. And I'm also going to share with you the 3 specific quantum keys I discovered to achieve full Thriver healing status, and my experiences when channeling, creating, and applying quantum freedom healing. And please know, if you don't want to wait until next week and you want to dive on in and start going quantum, you can do so by clicking the link at the top right of this video. My free 16-day course will explain so much to you, things that will make perfect sense about your healing journey and how to do it the right way. And if you want to see more of my videos, please subscribe so that you'll be notified as soon as each new one is released. And if you liked this, click like. Also, please share with your communities so that you can help people awaken to these truths. So thank you for your presence and your attention regarding the fascinating quantum healing conversation that we're having. And I can't wait to share the conclusion of this series with you next week. And as always, I'm looking forward to answering your comments and your questions below. So until the next one, keep smiling, keep healing, and keep thriving because there's nothing else to do. Lots of love. Bye-bye.